Twilight Sparkle's hooves clicked softly against the cold stone as she stepped into Canterlot Castle. The grand doors had been forced open by magic, their hinges groaning in protest. Normally, the castle shimmered with warmth and life, but tonight the air was heavy, thick with silence. Her horn glowed faintly, casting a soft violet light in the darkness. The candles along the walls had all gone out, leaving shadows that slithered across the marble like living things. She walked slowly, each step measured. Twilight had hoped the castle was empty of danger, that perhaps the missing letters from Princess Celestia were simply delayed. But something in the air told her otherwise. The smell was the first warning, a metallic coppery tang that made her stomach twist. Her hooves slipped slightly on something wet. Twilight looked down, and her eyes widened in horror. The floor was slick with blood. Dark, congealed patches spread in irregular patterns, some still wet, reflecting the light from her horn like glistening glass. She froze for a moment, ears pinned back. This isn't right," she whispered to herself. Her voice sounded too loud in the silence, echoing off the walls and making her flinch. She moved forward cautiously, avoiding the largest puddles, but the sound of her hooves squishing into blood seemed to amplify her fear. Each step made a wet, sickening squelch, and she squeaked in terror. Twilight's magic flickered slightly, a trembling shield around her horn. A sudden noise stopped her cold. From somewhere deeper within the hall, a low, wet scrape echoed, a sound like claws dragging across stone. Twilight's heart pounded violently. She strained her ears, holding her breath. There it was again, a soft, almost deliberate movement, wet and heavy, like the castle itself was breathing. Frozen in place, Twilight felt every instinct screaming at her to run, but her hooves were rooted to the floor. Something massive had moved, something alive. Her horn flared, lighting the hallway brighter as she forced herself to step toward the noise. The smell of blood was stronger here, sharp and choking, and she could see tracks smeared across the floor, dragging darker streaks along with them. The noise grew closer. Twilight's eyes widened in terror, pupils dilated. The scraping sound became heavier, louder, like bones grinding against stone. Her hooves trembled uncontrollably as she inched forward, and then she saw it. At the end of the hall, in the shadows, a massive shape lurked. Its wings, skeletal and torn, stretched behind it like broken flags. Its head tilted unnaturally, the jaw hanging at a grotesque angle. The eyes, hollow, black, and shining with unnatural light, found her immediately. Twilight's horn flared violently as a scream caught in her throat. The sound of her own fear echoed back at her, mingling with the wet, scraping noise of something moving in the shadows. Her legs refused to obey, her magic barely holding her in place. It stepped forward. Every movement made the floor slick with more blood. The scent of decay and iron burned her nostrils. And then, the horror struck her fully. This was her teacher. Princess Celestia, but not as she had ever known her. The body was grotesque, monstrous. Her head barely clung to her neck, tilted at an impossible angle. Her wings were featherless, skeletal, dripping with dark fluids. The hall's silence was shattered by a wet, gurgling rasp as Celestia moved closer, her mouth opening in a horrifying, predatory gape. Twilight's mind screamed for her to run. She could barely form the words, could barely move. She realized, in a cold, paralyzing moment, that the creature before her was alive, but not Celestia. Not entirely. Whatever virus, whatever dark magic had corrupted her, had transformed the princess into something inhuman, and yet, Twilight couldn't look away. Her heart hammered. The scraping noise, the wet squelches of her own hooves on blood, the hollow eyes, it all became a horrifying symphony of terror. Twilight knew deep down that there was no turning back. She was standing at the center of death itself, in the hall of her mentor, and there was no escape from what came next. Twilight's hooves slipped again on the slick floor, and she stumbled forward, heart hammering. Every movement of her own body echoed loudly in the cavernous hall. The sound of the blood beneath her hooves squelched wetly, a horrifying accompaniment to the low, gurgling rasp behind her. She tried to cast a binding spell, but the creature was too fast. Celestia, or whatever she had become, lunged with unnatural speed, her skeletal wings whipping against the walls, scraping stone, spraying blood from fallen guards in all directions. The sound of tearing, wet flesh made Twilight gag, her stomach twisting. Twilight ran. The hallways twisted in a maze, shadows flickering as her horn cast a trembling light. She rounded corners blindly, stepping over broken bodies. Limbs, shredded armor, and pools of blood coated the floor. Her hooves sank into puddles, splattering droplets onto her face and horn. Her shield spell barely flickered against the raw strength of the creature pursuing her. The gurgling rasp grew louder, punctuated by wet thumps. The sound of Celestia's massive claws tearing into the floor as she gained speed. Twilight's hooves carried her down a side corridor, her breathing ragged, her magic trembling. She could feel the creature behind her, the heat of corrupted magic pulsed in the air, a sickening aura that made her vision blur. Twilight tried to turn a corner, casting a magical binding whip to slow Celestia. It struck her teacher's wings, but instead of stopping, the monster shrieked in a wet, tearing scream that echoed off the walls. Something in the sound made Twilight's blood run cold. The scream was both agony and hunger. Her horn flared brighter, illuminating the hall. Twilight froze for a moment. Ahead, another pool of blood stretched across the corridor, darker, thicker, glistening in the light. She tried to leap over it, but her hooves sank into the viscous red. Something squelched beneath her, warm and sticky. A muffled gurgle from behind made her scream. Celestia lunged. The monster's jaws clamped onto Twilight's back, rending her cloak and fur with a wet, ripping sound. Twilight flailed, casting a dozen spells in desperation, binding magic, shielding, flashes of light, but each strike met resistance, each blast met with an inhuman, bone-crunching strength. She felt her flesh tear as Celestia's claws raked along her sides, slicing through muscle and sinew. Twilight screamed, stumbling forward into another hall, her hooves leaving bloody trails on the floor. Her vision blurred as the creature tore at her from behind, its wings scraping the walls, shredding the curtains and banners that still hung. The metallic scent of blood was overpowering. She could feel the virus within Celestia pulsing, infecting the air, infecting her. Every spell she cast was weak against the monster's raw, corrupted power. She tried one last teleportation spell, hoping to vanish and save herself, but the creature was faster. Its jaws clamped around her neck. Twilight's horn flared violently in a final desperate burst of magic, sending shards of violet light flying in all directions. The pain was instantaneous. Celestia's teeth tore through her flesh with a wet, bone-cracking crunch. Twilight's vision darkened as blood filled her throat and lungs. Her magic sputtered and died. The last thing she saw was the hollow, corrupted eyes of her mentor, now a monster, leaning down, dripping with gore and corruption. Twilight's sparkle screams echoed once, then were silenced. The virus surged from Celestia into her body, the infection burning through her from the inside out. Her magic flared in a final, desperate heartbeat before dying completely. The castle returned to silence. The only sound was the faint, wet drip of blood onto stone floors, a reminder that even the brightest light could fall to darkness. Princess Celestia, monstrous and corrupted, moved forward, the hall now slick with the blood of both her guards and her once beloved student. The virus pulsed in the shadows, spreading, consuming, and leaving nothing but horror in its wake.